So this is coming up to 0620. 3 minutes to 0620. This is 0617 GMT in the morning of Tuesday, the 1st of September 2020. Now, you're continuing. This is the Kudilar campaign, continuing the report on the Action Committee meeting held in Brick Lane at 1700 GMT on Sunday, the 30th of August 2020. I chaired that meeting, but I was not deterred from actually leading the action discussion at some points. And I shall read the background texts that I had written a few minutes before the meeting. And I said in the previous edition that I had written it at a place called Digicom opposite the Altavali Park, situated in the Whitechapel Road, which is not far from the eastern exit and entrance to the Aldgate East Underground Station in the London Underground system. And the Altavali Park, the Digicom, and the east entrance and exit from the East London Aldgate East Tube Station, not far from Brick Lane, where we had the meeting at 1700 GMT. And these are all in the same kind of area as New Road, 15 New Road, London E1 1HE, where I have had family residence since the early 1960s, which is where I became involved in forming the movement for the defense of the community in the East End of London. That was 13th of June, 1963. Physically, I arrived on a later date than that, but that is when I had to organize this. And the organization of the movement for the defense of the community in the East End of London was inspired, compelled on me and the community that I perceived was there under attack by the attacks of the then Stepney Borough Council and its employees and the controlling decision-making personnel in the Stepney Borough Council. By the time I arrived at 15 New Road physically, the battle to fend off the attackers had now transferred onto the Tower Hamlets Council, which in April 1965 was formed by merging Stepney, Bethnal Green and Poplar Borough Councils. But the essential ingredients of the corruption inherent in the behavior of the council employees and decision makers continued. There has been a demand from the Conservatives and the Tory parties. Boris Graf has actually run a piece, I think in the Sunday Boris Graf, wondering whether local council should be scrapped. Now, if this becomes in any way a part of the agenda or manifesto or program of the Conservatives fronted by Boris Johnson, I will be, if not the principal witness about it, but one of the principal witnesses. And the reason is that I have been having to fight the crooks, and absolutely nobody has had to fight so many fights and battles against so many crooks in so many local councils in England. So completely against all my instincts and all my plans, I became embroiled in a never-ending series of battles against crooks that are letting down all sorts of people across the country in this country. So this latest attack on Brick Lane by Tower Hamlets Council crooks is not the only attack. Tower Hamlets Council is, of course, in the context of Brick Lane and the attacks on Brick Lane, and Brick Lane as defining the Bangladeshis in the UK or Bangladeshis internationally. Brick Lane is the front line. Whatever the number of people there now, or however many Bangladeshi businesses there are, Brick Lane remains the synonym for the Bangladeshi community abroad, internationally. And although the Bangladeshis in Brick Lane are from Sylhet, and as the most of the Bangladeshis in the UK are Seelottees and Seelottee speakers, the actual attacks aimed at the Seelottee-speaking Bangladeshis have impacts on the rest of the Bangladeshi community everywhere in the UK and then beyond. Now, my involvement in defending Brick Lane and the Bangladeshis, again, was totally against my plans and purposes. But it was imposed on me on grounds of conscience and on grounds of morality and ethics and the implications for the image and the future of Bangladeshis. When I say image, I of course refer to the image destroyed by Lutfur Rahman years later. But that has been my actual motivation or motivating factor to defend the image and the reputation and the integrity of the Bangladeshi community. And by extension, because Bangladeshis are mainly Muslims, it has been also relevant to address the attacks on Muslims, not on theological grounds and not on preacher's ground, because I'm not a preacher and I'm not a theologian in the contextual, conventional sense, but in a political, humanitarian, international, legal sense. I have had no alternative but to speak up for the community and to speak out against the attackers and diagnose them and expose them and dilute them and defeat them in terms of their attacks. Now, on the 30th of August, Sunday, I went into the Digicom and I wrote this one. And this has been slightly typo corrected. There were about 5 typos in the printed version. But this is the thing that I'll read about the attack by John Biggs-fronted cabal in Tower Hamlets Crooked Council. Devised, written, and circulated by Muhammad Haque at the action meeting held in Brick Lane at 1700 GMT on Sunday, 30th of August, 2020. And this is, as I said, the typo corrected version. Action meeting to end Tower Hamlets Council's closure of Brick Lane to traffic movements. Petition started on Sunday, 30th of August, 2020. We, the undersigned residents, notice the breadth and width of the people that I have included in the petition. And I'm an expert, I'm a long-standing expert at writing constitutional law instruments and documents and petitions and forms and all the other stuff. I'm unique in that factually. It is not a boast, it's not a brag, it is just an evidential matter. I'm also the one who wrote the definitive constitution for the Bangladesh Welfare Association, and that I shall be explaining and discussing at a later date. That constitution has been extremely beneficial to the abusers of the Welfare Association. I am not part of the Welfare Association controlling people, but I have been told reliably that my document, without attributing this to me, has been exploited by a lot of crooks that have pocketed money by citing that constitution as a very authentic document representing the intelligence and integrity of the Bangladeshi community. It's all down to me, what I wrote, not them. They could not write it, they cannot write it, and they would not write it. So I wrote that, and as I have written this one, we the undersigned residents, tenants, and members of the community who live and work in or have very close links with residents and tenants in the London Borough of Tower Hamlets, support this petition being organized by the Khudilar campaign defending the community in the East End of London to stop Tower Hamlets Council's closure of Brick Lane and the adjoining roads and streets to traffic, and that we do so support this demand on very good economic, social grounds. We call on Tower Hamlets Council to publish economic and social evidence, and to do so in accordance with the duty the London Borough of Tower Hamlets Council is under, according to the Constitution, and as prescribed and required by the relevant provisions of the charters, declarations, conventions, and directives and or guidance that the UK is a signatory to take into actual, manifest, demonstrable account the full impact of its closure decisions on the people, families, individuals, residents, traders, and non-profit vital community organizations and initiatives, and other ordinary users of the highways and the byways and the access roads, routes, and spaces in the area. And so therefore, what I have written there covers the entire population affected by this stupid latest attack on Brick Lane. Now, I have said that this is the latest in a series of attacks mounted on Brick Lane. And I started the attack, kind of identification of the attack in 1973, as I have said previously, when the attackers used the Sunday Times, what was then commonly referred to as the Color Supplement or Color Magazine, the Sunday Times Color Supplement or the Sunday Times Magazine, and they used a woman who, after almost 50 years since she colluded with this corruption, remains as stupid, as racist, as ill-informed as all the other racists and idiots who have become experts about Brick Lane, and whose common link among themselves between each other has been their contempt, racistly motivated contempt and intolerance of the Bangladeshis. And what this attack on the traffic flow in Brick Lane and the freedom of the vehicles to move through Brick Lane demonstrates is that agenda to destabilize and to dislocate and remove the Bangladeshi presence from Brick Lane. That is what it is. And at the meeting, where this petition was signed by almost all the people except a few, which I later discovered, and this was one of the decisions. They agreed this by signing, and they agreed what I said later during the chairing of the meeting. So before I play some of the words that were spoken at the meeting, I will play some of the others, not what I said, but some of the others' contributions. One of the contributors, a local businessman, actually used the phrase ethnic cleansing. I didn't use it, but he did. Whether he meant ethnic cleansing in the sense of Serbia massacring the Bosnian Muslims, which is when the ethnic cleansing became known or published, Whether he meant that or whether he meant attack based on the ethnicity of the target community and motivated by a plan or intention to get that community out of the area, as opposed to what the Serbs did to the Bosnian Muslims. And so that is the clarification. But he said that it was ethnic cleansing, the road closures. And he said also that there was an issue of identity, or Bangladeshi community's identity was being challenged and undermined and attacked. And that the Bangladeshi community, he meant, was at risk of losing the identity. He meant that if the community was effectively removed and displaced from Brick Lane, then that would be the effect. Now, in 1973, I started the campaign against the Sunday Times, and I spent about 3 years. The intensity of my work would constitute about 20 or 30 separate theses that would warrant my being awarded PhDs. But I didn't do that for any award. What I did was original work in articulating, in defending, and identifying, in overall creating the identity of Bangladeshis in the UK. That never had existed. The Bangladeshis became part of a footnote in 1971 as part of the people who are protesting against the Pakistani atrocities. And it was then still not Bangladesh. It was towards being Bangladesh. So once Bangladesh was created as a state on the 16th of December 1971, it took a while before it became accepted as an ordinary member of the Committee of Nations in the world. So in December 1973, when Leslie Garner, the idiot, penned that piece attacking the Seelottees, she targeted the Seelottees. That actually gives the game away as to who contributed to that operation. So it was non-Seelottee elements that came from other parts of Bangladesh and probably India. And that theme we shall be developing based on entirely factual evidence over the decades of the attacks, many attacks mounted at the target being called Seelottees. So therefore the attackers were non-Seelottees. And that is something I shall be further updating on the diagnosis of now. So the petition that I had drafted was signed by the people on the 30th of August against John Biggs fronted council's closure of Brick Lane and the traffic through Brick Lane. And then it was advanced to further action when I suggested that we shall be taking action, including that the Kudilar campaign would be communicating the outrage of the community to all concerned until this blockade by Biggs fronted council was removed, withdrawn, and done so within 10 days, because the various speakers suggested that we should give an ultimatum for 1 day. Immediately, Town Hamlets Council remove this blockade, or within 10 days. Whichever was communicated to the council, the community's response would be, if the council failed to act and stop the blockade, then the community would personally, individuals supporting the community, opposition to this, would personally remove the blockade and the closure notices and signboards. So that's the thing that we are saying to Tower Hamlets Council this morning. And this is being recorded at 6:37 GMT and 7:37 London time, UK time, on Tuesday, the 1st of September 2020. Now, it may sound, in terms of geography, in terms of the population, a small-scale battle, but it is not. This battle against the blockade on Brick Lane represents other battles being fought across the UK by other communities. And the thread I am connecting all these communities by are the communities coming from India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. And so it is like all over the place, they are enacting the Battle of June 1757. The Battle of, they call it Plassey. It is actually, the name is Polashi. Polashi is a ground, is a mango grove, not far from Kolkata. And that is where they recruited some stooges, some terrible Phillipses, and some surrogates to side with the East India Company fronted by Robert Clive and betray the Nawab Sirajuddaulah, who was the Nawab of the three countries in the still Mughal Empire. This Orissa, which is now Odisha, the West Bengal, and Bihar, or Bengal, United Bengal, that is East and West Bengal, which is Bangladesh, and West Bengal of today, and Bihar. So when they betrayed Sirajuddaulah, the traitors thought that they would be rewarded by their recruiters and abusers and exploiters who did the opposite, which happens often. And so therefore the end of Mir Jafar, who's synonymous with treachery in the context of the British Empire and East India Company, the Mir Jafar's fate was very badly kind of concluded, and the name has become a swear word, obviously. And so is the name of Clive. Any name, anyone called Clive is treated with instant suspicion by people in the subcontinent, at least those who are conscious of the implications of Clive, East India Company. Not many people know about Macaulay. I'm the one who has been trying to relate the role of Macaulay in all the communications and posts and publishing articles. And when I ran the program during the 1980s for training parents and school governors to become active school governors in the then still alive Inner London Education Authority in the 1980s, I tried to include the particular quotation attributed to Thomas Babington Macaulay, who was contemptuous of the languages, the cultures of the people of the subcontinent, Hindus, Sikhs, and Muslims. Well, Sikhs, not so much, but Hindus and Muslims he was very against. So what is happening in Brick Lane was treated at the meeting on the 30th of August as a kind of similar attack on the community by the racists and imperialists and those who don't like our community's presence in the area undisturbed. And one of the speakers said that there was an attempt not long ago, which is in the last 2 years, to create a parish council in and around the Brick Lane area. And the implication of this reference by this speaker was that that was an attempt to destabilize and remove the Bangladeshis from this area, Brick Lane. So John Biggs was not named by many people, but the implication was that he was the one who was mounting and heading the attack. And I said that the council had absolutely no right to do what it was doing, and we shall be opposing it. And I'm going to find the extracts of some of the speeches that were made there at the meeting. including bits of what I said, but let's see who is speaking here. And signed, and the names that I can read, there are a few names that I cannot read, but there are some that I can read. Majority of them I can read. One is Shanur, the first one. The other one is Askar. No, that's not the one that. This is the one. কারণ আমরা ঐতিহ্যবাহী ব্রিকলেন খালি যে লোকাল মানুষ আইয়া যে ব্রিকলেনটা করা তা না ব্রিকলেন কিন্তু আমি মনে করি খালি অল ওভার ইউকে না রাউন্ড দ্য ওয়ার্ল্ড কারণ বিশেষ করে আমার অভিজ্ঞতা কি বললাম আমি আমার গাঁও আগে আমার সানলাইট ট্রাভেলস আছি আমি আজ 18 বছর থেকে ব্রিকলেন আমার গাঁও চালাই না আজকে ধরে 9-10 বছর থাকি এই অভিজ্ঞতা থেকে বললাম যেমন ইউরোপ বাংলাদেশ থেকে মিনিস্ট্রি থেকে যত মানুষ আর প্রতি মাসও কিন্তু আপনারা জানেন বাংলাদেশ থেকে মানুষ আয় ইউরোপ থেকে মানুষ আইরা আমেরিকা থেকে মানুষ আইরা আইলে আমরা বাঙালি কমিউনিটি একবার বিজ্ঞানী তারা রাউন্ড দিয়ে যায় আর অল ওভার ইউকে তো আছেও সকাল আইলে ভাড়া থেকে আইলে কিন্তু বিজ্ঞানী নাই আইলে ওই কিতা আমরা খাওয়া দাওয়া করে বা বিভিন্ন জিনিস নেয় মিষ্টি লয় মসজিদ আয় বিজ্ঞানীরা মসজিদ ঐতিহ্যবাহী একটা মসজিদ আপনারা জানেন না মানে অনেক সম্মুখীন মানে আমরা বন্ধ করি না মানে আমরা এতে দেখি ব্যর্থ পাই বক্তার ব্যাপারে আজকে বিশেষ করে আমার জামাল ভাই আমার রফিক ভাই আমার শান্দুর ভাই আসই মসজিদ কমিটি তারা প্রতিনিধি এখন পাঠাইছিল আমার বড় ভাই আসই তারা দুজন আসই না আপনারা যারা আইসই আপনারা অটোমেটিক এটা আলোচনা করতাম যে আমরা এটা কিলা প্রতিরোধ করতাম পারি কিলা স্টপ করতাম পারি একটু আলোচনা করতাম আপনারা
আচ্ছা এখানে ও ভাই হ্যালো এর বাদে তোমার বাদে মোস্ট ইনফর্ম আছেন টাইম নেই না
আমি কইলাই না আজকের ব্রিকলেন বিজনেস কমিউনিটি রেসিডেন্টস আয়োজিত যে একটা অনুষ্ঠান ব্রিকলেনের যে ব্যবসা বাণিজ্য একটা পরিকল্পিতভাবে ধ্বংস করা আমরা বিচ্ছিন্নভাবে এখানে থাকার কারণে অনেক সময় দেখা গেছে প্রত্যেকের দরদ আছে ব্রিকলেনের লাগে সুতরাং ব্রিকলেনের যে দরদ এটা কমিউনিটির অধিকাংশ মানুষ বাইরে গেছে সুতরাং বাইরে যাওয়ার কারণে আগে যাওয়া কমিউনিটি হাব এখানে একসাথে ডাকলে খুব তাড়াতাড়ি জমা একটা প্রতিবাদ অথবা প্রটেস্ট করা যাইতো বর্তমানে এই জিনিস করা যায় না এর লাগি তারা আমি মনে করি কাউন্সিলের যে জিনিসটা করে তারা যদি বিজনেস কমিউনিটির লাগি বালা করতা যে তারা কাউন্সিল আমি মনে করি বিজনেস কমিউনিটি রেসিডেন্সিয়াল সারারে লইয়া বারবার কনসালটেশন করা উচিত আছে সুতরাং না করার ফলে তারা একটা সুদূর প্রসারী ব্রিকলেন একটা বাংলাদেশের কমিউনিটি হাব এই কমিউনিটি থেকে বিভিন্ন নেতৃত্ব বাড়াই আইছেন এই কমিউনিটি থেকে বিভিন্ন বড় বড় প্রতিষ্ঠান বাড়ি হয়েছে এই কমিউনিটি থেকে মানুষ ইংল্যান্ডও প্রতিনিধিত্ব করা আমি মনে করি কাউন্সিল তারা একটা সুদূর প্রসারিত সুদূর একটা চিন্তাধারা থেকে এই বাংলাদেশি কমিউনিটির বিচ্ছিন্ন করার লাগে তারা একটা পরিকল্পনার অংশ আর যদি পরিকল্পনার অংশ না থাকতো এই এরিয়া ব্যবসা বাণিজ্য বাড়ার লাগে বর্তমানে কোভিড-19 গভর্নমেন্ট স্যার এই দেশের ব্যবসা বাণিজ্য বাড়াইবার লাগে সব ধরনের ফ্যাসিলিটিস দেওয়ার সুতরাং আমরা কি তারা এটা মনে করতাম পারি না এই ব্যবসা ধ্বংস করার লাগে তারা একটা পরিকল্পনা করছে আমি মনে করি আমরা যদি এখন এখানে ব্যবসায়ী সমিতি এবং রেসিডেন্টস যারা আছে
So this is a glimpse of one main contribution, which includes several factors. And the last one is the very significant point that instead of helping the businesses in Brick Lane during the pandemic and under the pandemic measures, they are actually doing the opposite of what the government is supposedly doing for other small businesses. So this clearly shows, according to the speaker, that there is a planned attack, this closure of traffic in Brick Lane, affecting the businesses at a time when the businesses are being also deprived of the support, financial support that are being made available to other businesses under these schemes during the pandemic. So this will be the kind of flavor, the speeches and contributions and outlines that were evident at the meeting on the 30th of August 2020, which I chaired, and which is the campaign that is ongoing. And we are saying to Armed Council during today, Tuesday, 1st of September, which is the first day since that meeting, first day in the kind of official kind of schedule, that the council is back at quote work, whether they are working remotely or not, doesn't matter. That they should immediately stop this blockade on Brick Lane and remove the closure notices and withdraw the closure decision and let the traffic flow for all kinds of very solid, sensible reasons. And we shall be continuing this report on this channel later in the day, today, Tuesday, the 1st of September 2020. And we're telling John Biggs to withdraw the blockade from Brick Lane and to stop the closure of the traffic through Brick Lane and side roads immediately.